Hey ho! How's everybody doing?
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Oddcast podcast, Off the Record.
Today is April 27th, and tonight we are covering the 27 Club.
She thought she'd be crafty with this one. I don't know if you know what the 27 Club is. Some people aren't familiar with it, but it's sort of a lot of people started passing or noticing that people were passing away. Famous people were passing away at the age of 27. So it kind of became a cultural thing. If you look at some of the people that died, which we'll go over and what they died from and who they were, it really gets interesting because if you research this, you realize that 27, a lot of people die at 27, a lot of people die at 28, 29, 30, and older than that. But the cultural, the thing that's weird about this is the amount of famous people that died that were very big culturally on a generation. And that's why we both wanted to kind of cover it. We know there's other shows going on right now. We're going to make this a quicker show. We don't have a guest, but I know for curiosity, I think some people need to know about this or want to know about this. So we'll discuss it and kind of talk about it. With the 27 Club, it's also a big reminder of lifestyle choices. A lot of these people that have passed away some were car wrecks, some were heroin overdoses, some were murders. There's just all kinds of different ways that they died. Comments. And it's just interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
it is an unofficial club. It is just
it's not yay, I'm in the 27 Club.
Yeah, it's the unfortunate irony, and tragedy, and it's really very sad. But it is odd that so many have passed away at that age, and it was so much that it became a thing. It gained a title, and there are rumored to be other clubs, fill in the blank with the age, but we're just going to cover the 27 Club this evening.
It's when you get on a certain people that die and you go on, there's conspiracy theories with how they died. There's just all kind of things to look at, and we're just going to touch base on a few of them and kind of let you know who they were and what they did and what influence they had on people. And technically, the actual 27 Club didn't start till after the death of Brian Jones of the Rolling Stones, but we're going to start a little bit earlier than that. A gentleman by the name of Robert Johnson. He was a New Orleans blues player. It's an interesting story. He was born in May 8th, 1911, and he died August 6, 1938. Born in Mississippi. I'm sure if William's in here, he's going to probably know who he is. But the story I've heard about Robert Johnson was that he wasn't much of anything. When he first came out, nobody applauded his talents, or he could play the guitar a little bit and he could sing. But one night he showed up at a bar and he was phenomenal. Everybody loved this guy, and there's a story behind that as well, which I'll touch on a little bit. But he was a singer and a guitarist. He was big into the Delta blues. He's a Delta blues legend. And the thing that's hard to know about Robert Johnson is there's really, at that time, 1911, sometimes there's not a whole lot of documentation to talk about your life. So his story goes that, where I started with him being not very good and then all of a sudden being fantastic, he came out and told people that he sold his soul to the devil to be a talented musician. And it's ironic because a couple of his songs, the Crossroads Blues kind of says that, he was at a crossroads in life. And from there, he had to make a decision on what to do. And that's when he technically sold his soul to the devil so that he would be something. He also had a song called Hellhound on My Trail. So maybe he's not lying about that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But anyway, there's various legends surrounding him. And the one I like to talk about is the fact that he made a deal with the devil. Because when I started researching that, I actually typed in and researched how many people in Hollywood and other areas have claimed to have sold their soul to the devil for fame and fortune. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people that have claimed that that's what they've done in interviews. And that's just shocking in general. It, you know, just to think that somebody wanted to give up their soul for fame and fortune. And then you have people like these rock stars that are dying at a young age, and kind of makes you wonder what, was this part of it? But Robert Johnson died, and nobody really knows what he died of. They didn't keep the correct records back then. I'm sure poor South probably wasn't a whole lot of record keeping back then. Mm-hmm. But he was very influential in the blues, rock, and folk genres. And people today still talk about him being an influence, even though that was back in the 1930s, 1920s. People still talk about that today. That he was an influence, especially your guitarists. A lot of your famous guitarists really think Robert Johnson was, big deal.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of that podcast you listened to?
Oh, I definitely suggest Disgraceland. If you ever check out that podcast, it's about rock and roll stars, how they lived their lives. They have an episode on the 27 Club. It's fantastic. But they have an episode on Jerry Lee Lewis. You learn things about Jerry Lee Lewis you probably never knew. And the gentleman that does it, it's on Spotify. He's really good. And I highly suggest Disgraceland.
Disgraceland.
Yep.
Okay. So next we have Jesse Belvin. And he was born in 1932, died in 1960. He was an American singer and pianist. He was the co-author of the Penguins hit Earth Angel, which I think most people are singing in their head right now. And Good Night, My Love was the closing theme for Alan Freed's rock and roll radio show. That I'm not familiar with. But unfortunately, Jesse passed away at the age of 27 from a car accident. And it was reported that the driver of the vehicle was driving he and his wife, Mrs. Belvin, I believe other vehicle or other passengers in the vehicle too. But Jesse, reportedly the driver had hit head on another vehicle after crossing the line. And the driver and Jesse Belvin passed away immediately at the scene. And then his wife, unfortunately, passed away at the hospital very soon after. And following that is Rudy Lewis of the Drifters. He was born August 23rd, 1936, and died May 20th, 1964. And with the Drifters, he sang another familiar song, Some Kind of Wonderful, on Broadway and Up on the Roof. And he was scheduled to go to the studio and sing for Under the Boardwalk. They were going to record that song, but he did not show. His body was found. And another situation where the cause of death was never determined, but speculation. Some say he might have overdosed. And this is another common theme that we hear. It could have been overdose. They could have choked to death. And this is not the first time we've heard from binge eating and or a combination of that and drugs. So his is undetermined, but that was Rudy Lewis of the Drifters. Then we have Brian Jones, who is the singer and founder of the Rolling Stones. And he was born February 28th, 1942, died at the age of 27, July 3rd, 1969. And
real quick, she didn't want to tell you where he was from because
I don't want. There are multiple reasons.
Cheltenham, Gloucestershire, Gloucestershire, England. Sounds good, right?
I didn't think we needed to go that into depth with this list of people. So he was the founding member, and he died at the age of 27 after drowning in a swimming pool at his home. So all of and we've got more to list. We don't have all to list because there are multiple lists on the internet. And also, you kind of got to draw the line because I believe one was the Byzantine Empire. And it's like,
I don't know much about the Byzantine Empire.
Life expectation at that time was, so we really didn't go that far back. So
yeah, there's many professional athletes. There's famous artists, just so many types of people, and we kind of wanted to keep it for people that you might know. There's no reason to talk about a famous artist from the 14th century that nobody's heard of. Well, us common folk haven't heard of.
Wendell, that's a possibility.
Yeah, I want to hear Wendell pronounce Worcestershire. It's Worcestershire. Anyway, so next we've got Jimi Hendrix, one of my favorites. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, more the 80s and the 70s as a little kid, but I really love Jimi Hendrix. That was the first metal for me. Being a metalhead, Jimi Hendrix music was, the distortion and everything. And that's pretty much what he was really known for. Besides being a great guitarist, he was also known as an innovator, using distortion and other pedals to really change the style of music. Jimi was born November 27th, 1942 in Seattle, Washington, and he died September 18th, 1970. He has been called one of the most influential musicians in the 20th century by Rolling Stone magazine, and sixth greatest artist of all time, with hits like Foxy Lady, Along the Watchtower, Purple Haze. I mean, I think most of you know Jimi Hendrix songs. There's a lot of mysterious circumstances under Jimi's death. Of course, he died at the age of 27. They say it was from aspiration of vomit while sleeping. In other words, he choked on his vomit after ingesting a lot of alcohol and sleeping pills. But there's also the conspiracy theory that Hendrix's death was actually a homicide. Now, I didn't dive too much into that one, but there's apparently one where his manager possibly killed him. I'm not going to say yay or nay on that. I don't know. I've researched that part of it, but obviously the actual death certificate said asphyxiation from vomit and alcohol.
Real quick, Denise from our chat said, actually, I should go ahead and highlight that. I saw Jimi in concert, my favorite.
Awesome. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. You weren't on any drugs, were you, Denise?
And then she said, I snuck in.
Okay. I know I watched a video of, I think it was the Monterey Pop Festival, where Jimi catches his guitar on fire. And a good friend of mine was big into Jimi Hendrix, and said Jimi used to take, he always wore a bandana, and underneath the bandana, he'd put a hit of acid up there, and it'd soak into his. And then one of the things I was telling her about, it's just amazing to me, these rockers that were, lived the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle, but could still be on stage and perform well. Now, there were times where they didn't, but, we're going to touch on a couple of those people here in a sec.
I think it's funny. I was about to mention the same thing. Chad and I have talked about it many times. It's like, how do they remember the lyrics to their songs? How do they remember the notes to play? We're getting into that era with the artists that we're covering right now, and it just surprises us.
Yeah, I'm baffled by it. A few drinks and I can't. I'm the ultimate karaoke singer that can't. I need the karaoke machine in front of me because I can never remember the words to the song. Okay, next on our list is Janis Joplin. And everybody knows who Janis Joplin is. She was definitely known for her voice. They said that she had a mezzo soprano. People that can sing probably know that better than I do. I just know that she had a super powerful voice, and I really liked her sound. Bobby McGee, me and Bobby McGee. What were the big ones she had? That's probably her biggest, but that was a fantastic song.
Mercedes.
Sounds good.
Sorry.
I wasn't a huge, obviously, Janis Joplin fan, but I did like her music. And I know a lot of people that do karaoke will do Janis Joplin songs, and prove that they can sing. But she was born January 19th, 1943 in Port Arthur, Texas. And I believe she was a son of a military
Whoa.
son. Well, these days, who knows? Daughter of a military general or colonel or high-ranking official. So she was in that probably rebellious lifestyle. Yes, take another piece of my heart. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
When you get up here and start reading things, and yeah, you start forgetting stuff. But she's also been listed as one of the 100 greatest top rock and rollers of all time. And I believe deservingly. She was a phenomenal voice, could really just belt it out. Okay, next is the person that epitomizes sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that's Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison, if you don't know who he is, was lead singer of the Doors. They had lots of hits. I don't really need to tell you any of them. I do know them. But he was born December 8th, 1943 in Melbourne, Florida, which I didn't know that till now. And he died July 3rd, 1971. Again, there's another person that was considered one of the greatest rock and roll influences of all time. Really enjoyed the Doors, Ray Manzarek and John Densmore, I think. But I used to play in some bands back in the day, and the guys I was in bands with, where I was trying to do punk rock, they wanted to do classic rock, and it was just well, it was because I was trying to sing it and I couldn't sing it. I could smash guitars and stuff like that, but okay, let's get on something else. Jimmy pretty much was the hippie of hippies. He was what I call the king of the counterculture at that time. It was during Vietnam, and he used his voice to pretty much, hate the man. And, we're all at a point where we weren't that way, and now we're kind of all getting that way a little bit, where the man, anyway. So he lived an erratic lifestyle. He was definitely addicted to heroin, really didn't care what he said on stage. Just, there were times where he couldn't perform. He was just so looped on drugs. And that's really sad when these rock and rollers who probably could have had, you look at bands like the Rolling Stones and they're still performing. The Who, I hope they don't come out again, but all these bands at 70, 80 years old are still making tours. And
I know.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me because they tell you your whole life that alcohol will kill you and drugs will kill you and everything. And maybe there's a point where if you do too much, it keeps you alive. I don't know. Look at Keith Richards. Anyway, so that's pretty much it for Jim Morrison. I mean, again, as with everything we talk about, if you want to know more, research it. There's more out there. You can, again, the podcast Disgraceland will give everything on rock and roll. And this guy, it's usually about 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half long. And they're all taped. It's just an excellent, excellent series.
Can you again go over his death date for Jim Morrison?
Yeah. Jim died July 3rd, 1971.
Okay, so the next on the list is, ironically, his girlfriend. And her date of death was April 25th, 1974. Her name is Pamela Corson, and I don't know how long they were together, but he left everything to her. And she had found him dead in the bathtub. And anyhow, I don't know their relationship, and I don't know how long she was on drugs, but I would assume that she had been on drugs prior to his death. But she had passed away due to a heroin overdose. And it's just odd to me that that's the next one on the list, but 2 years apart.
One of the things I'd like to say is she was next in line to inherit everything Jim Morrison had, which would probably some of the discography, some of the sales from all of that stuff. But I'm assuming the other Doors probably fought her in that.
Yeah, whoever it was
until she died.
Yeah, not saying that's related to her death or anything, but she had not officially inherited, if you want to say, because she was still at the time of her death in court battles.
Yep.
So next on the list is Ron Pigpen McKernan. And he was born September 8th, 1945, died on March 8th, 1973. He was the vocalist and keyboardist for Grateful Dead at the time. And he had suffered for a while excessive alcohol consumption, which led to liver damage. And he had other health issues from the excessive alcohol consumption. And it sounds like he laid off for a while. He was no longer a part of the band for a while. And however, his actual cause of death, according to various articles, was a rare autoimmune disease. Then next is Dave Alexander, the founding bassist for the band The Stooges. He was born on June 3rd, 1947, died February 10th, 1975. And he had struggled with substance abuse and addictions of that for several years. Ultimately died from pulmonary edema. Next on the list is Pete Ham, the lead vocalist for the band Badfinger from the 1970s. Pete was born April 27th, 1947. He passed away April 24th, 1975. And he was from Wales.
Isn't that where Sharon's from? Or is that
Belgium.
Oh, Belgium.
Sharon.
That's right. That's right.
And he was the lead singer of Badfinger. Hits No Matter What. I'm not personally familiar with Badfinger. Some from our audience may.
We played a few songs, listened to a few songs last night, and I think we recognized two of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they were called, but I recognized them.
Yeah, he had some issues monetarily, legally with the band, and as a result of someone else's behavior, he committed suicide by hanging himself.
That's horrible. Horrible, horrible. Next, we've got a gentleman by the name of D. Boone. Now, I was a punk rocker growing up, and the Minutemen were one of the bands I used to listen to all the time. He was a guitarist and the vocalist. He was born on April 1st, 1958, and he passed on December 22nd, 1985 from a car wreck where he was ejected and died immediately, obviously, from a broken neck. Not obviously, but died from a broken neck, which is, I can't imagine, which we'll be talking someday about this lady too and her car wreck, but another story. And then they claim that Brian Jones' death was where the 27 Club started, but nobody really paid attention until Kurt Cobain died at the age of 27. And you all know Kurt Cobain, lead singer of Nirvana, had a heroin addiction for years, suffered from depression, really was kind of also the innovator of grunge music, because nobody was really, there were bands like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, but Nirvana was the first to come out with that sound. Mm-hmm. And I look at grunge as sort of modern day kind of rock and roll, the way rock and roll's gone. Mm-hmm. There's so many different types of rock and roll out there. But Kurt Cobain was born February 20th, 1967, great year, and in Aberdeen, Washington, and he died April 5th, 1994. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about how he died, why he died, but he was definitely kind of a spokesman for Generation X. Kind of like everybody, you still see people walking around with Nirvana shirts or Kurt Cobain on the front of their shirt. And it's just, it's all how you look at it. I don't think he was the most talented individual, but he came along at the right time for the right people, I think. And that's what rock and roll is a lot of times, So, I mean, we also have Dave Grohl from that band, and he's left. And it's really interesting. The band itself, a gentleman named Chris Novoselic that was in the band, quit the band to join the United States military and ended up being, I think, a sniper or Navy SEAL or something crazy like that, which is like okay, you're against the man.
It's a stark contrast.
And now you're with the man. But anyways, it was very interesting, that story. The death of Kurt Cobain is listed as suicide. Apparently he, I don't want to go into details, but he offed himself with a gun. And but there is a huge conspiracy theory around that, and his wife at the time, Courtney Love. Again, it's something to, if you really are interested in it, check it out. It's again, Disgraceland has a full episode on it, and it's amazing. And
ironically, moving on to
moving on to the next one is Kristen Pfaff. Now, who knows who Kristen Pfaff is? I don't even know if that's how you pronounce the last name. Pfaff. Pfaff, sure. Or Pfaff. Anyway, she was the basis for the band Hole. Hole was a band that Courtney Love was in, Kurt Cobain's wife. I'd laugh at that because, it's just ironic that Courtney Love is involved in both of, Kurt Cobain's life and this Kristen Pfaff's life. I'm not saying she killed everybody, but anyway, Kristen was born May 26, 1967 and passed June 16, 1994 from acute opiate intoxication. And I'm assuming that means you just overdosed.
Yeah.
Assuming.
She had years of addiction, and she had moved states away, was with a previous band. I think it's called Janitor Joe, and then ended up against her mom's feelings, moved to Washington and joined Hole. And it sounds like things really got rough after Kurt passed away, and maybe things were getting weird with Courtney, it sounded like, for whatever reason. But she ended up going back, but still couldn't, back to her previous band, still couldn't break the habit. And unfortunately, another loss. Next, we have Richie Edwards, who was the lyricist and rhythm guitarist of the alternative band Manic Street Preachers. And he was born on December 22nd, 1967 again. He disappeared on February 1st, 1995. So it was later determined that was his date of death. He had depression for many years, and even referenced it in some of the songs that he had made. But he was last seen leaving his hotel that morning. And then later on, his vehicle was spotted at an area that's known for suicides. But he was never seen again after February 1st, 1995. Then we have Enos Cosby. He was a teacher, and he was the son of actor Bill Cosby. He was born April 15th, 1969, and died January 16th, 1997 from a bullet wound. It was an attempted robbery. And he was a student teacher at the time of his death.
Yeah. Jerry, I see your don't forget about John Bonham. I don't know if you're talking to us, but John Bonham died at 32 years old. And yes, he was probably one of the greatest rock drummers ever, Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm. We could do a whole other show on those who just died.
If we did a rock and roll show,
mm-hmm.
We're just trying to touch people, touch on people that are all part of the 27 Club. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, Lacey Peterson. I don't know if you remember her. Lacey was born in May 4th of 75 in Modesto, California, and passed reported missing December 24th, 2002. And of course, it was the big court case with Scott Peterson, her husband, eventually being charged with her murder and the death of her 8-month-old child, stillborn, was still inside of her, of course. And their bodies washed up on the ocean in California. So that was a sad story. I remember when that was going through, and it was really, really heartbreaking. Jonathan Brandis, I didn't know who he was till I saw this. I recognized his picture. He was a young actor, born in '76, died in 2003. He was on One Life to Live. Never seen it, but maybe there's some ladies out there that know what it is. And The Never Ending Story 2. He died, unfortunately, of suicide because he suffered from depression, which depression is a absolutely horrible thing. It's not something that you can control. Depression is, it's gotten a hold of myself many times. There's been times, but sometimes you can battle it and sometimes you can't. Now, this one's one of the ones I really wanted to talk about, Pat Tillman. And if anybody knows who Pat Tillman is, Pat Tillman was an Arizona Cardinals safety, and he played for the Arizona State, whatever Arizona State's. But he played at Arizona State. He was a linebacker for Arizona State. Pat was born in November 6, 1976, and passed in April 22nd, 2004. Pat had a promising football career ahead of him in the NFL and was really doing well. And then 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, Pat decided he felt his duty was to join the U.S. military and go fight. In 2001, September 11th, he decided obviously to fight, and he died as a result of friendly fire. I remember this. It was all over the news at the time. But, it's really sad that, he had his whole life, but, he felt that he needed to protect the United States and, do his part to serve his country. And that's definitely honorable. Not his death, but, it's honorable that he served, and his death is sad.
Okay. We are near the end of our list here. So next we have Amy Winehouse. And I know a lot of people are familiar with her and her music. She was born September 14th, 1983, and she died July 23rd, 2011. And she had struggled for a long time with alcohol abuse. But unfortunately, at the age of 27, she had passed away due to alcohol poisoning. And she always gave the impression, I wasn't very familiar, but I lived during that time. I wasn't very familiar with her, but she gave that impression of like, live hard.
Yeah.
What little I saw of her, that's just kind of the feeling that I got. And unfortunately, it got the best of her.
She was living a hard life before she even became famous. I think she was a bartender or owned a bar, and just every night in the stories, every night somebody'd say she was just out of her mind.
Yeah, it's okay. So I have one last on the list, Anton Yelchin, and he was born March 11th, 1989, and passed away June 19th, 2016. And he was an actor, and he was involved in an accident, unplanned. This is a direct quote from Self Magazine. He was found dead at his home by friends at 1 a.m. on Sunday morning. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office ruled on Tuesday that the official cause of death was accidental blunt traumatic asphyxia, meaning pressure on his chest caused a lack of oxygen to his brain.
So it sounds like he might have hit his chest on dash or steering wheel, or
he was trapped between, I believe it was I don't know if an emergency brake was released or what, but I believe it was a vehicle that trapped him in between the vehicle and a building. So unfortunately, life can, that happens. You never know.
Yeah, live your life every day. Mm-hmm. Enjoy it, because you never know when your time is up. There's other people that we kind of looked at that were on the list. Again, authors, artists. I I laugh at it because the 27 Club, and then like I said earlier, everybody dies. I mean, people die every day. Not everybody. That'd be horrible. People die every day, and you could really make a club with each. The reason we brought up the 27 Club is we both love music. Pretty much, I'll say pretty much all genres except one, and I won't mention that genre because you guys got to guess. But it's just the famous people of the genre that we listen to that have passed on at 27 years old was very, very much a coincidence. So, yeah. That's absolutely right, Roger. That guy will never pass.
Keith Richards and Steven Tyler and what's that one guy's name? From Rolling Stones, is he
Mick Jagger?
No.
Charlie Watts?
Yeah.
No, Keith Richards.
No,
Charlie Watts. Yeah, I don't know if he's still alive or not.
Jeez.
Let's hope he is.
Some of these.
But for the band to go on tour, I mean, sooner or later, some of these bands, when they go on tour, have like one person that remains from the band and the rest are like 20-year-olds,
And then we had Wind Clan Ken say hello, but he's driving, so he wouldn't be able to see if I had chatted that to him. But, I'm not trying to be mean, but it surprises me when I look, especially at the ones that were before my time, and I see pictures of them, and I'm kind of amazed that they were that young. They just looked older than it might be an effect of, their drug usage. I don't know. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just an observation. But yeah,
No, I'm sure that hard partying lifestyle really does, damage to you everywhere. The cigarettes they smoke, that already damages you. And then all the heroin and whatever you were doing at the time.
Yep.
Well, guys, we just kind of wanted to keep this short.
Yeah.
We could sit here and chat with you all day long, and then we could talk about whatever. But I know Uncle Greg's going to be on a show here in a little bit, so we don't want to mess with that. We want everybody to get there and watch Greg. And I think there's other shows going on too.
I also didn't want to say anything in the beginning, but I'm so glad it happened that we had Denise, who had actually had an encounter with someone who was listed on our list.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yep.
So if anybody has anything, we're always up for suggestions. We never run out of ideas, but if anybody has suggestions on topics they want us to cover, we're all ears.
We're going to do a cryptid show one of these days, but because we're a part of all these cryptid channels, we kind of want to make, if we do a cryptid show, we want to do it with a twist. And that's kind of what we're thinking about right now. So, okay, so Greg is on Midwest. It might probably start the same time we did.
I don't know. Okay, so I'm putting our email address on the chat. If you want to give us a topic, or if you want to be a guest on the show, we definitely would be up to listening to your suggestions.
Go ahead.
But our email address, just send us a message or send us on Messenger if you're friends with us on Facebook. But it's for Oddcast Podcast Off the Record. The email address is ocpotr@yahoo.com. Oddcast Podcast Off the Record.
And again, we're looking for, our podcast is about everything. We want it to be strange. We want it to be different than everything else. Like I said, we want to do a cryptid, but we want to do one which's got a twist to it. I haven't figured out how I want to do that twist. Originally, it was going to be the effects of seeing Bigfoot and have different people. I want to do a round table of conspiracy theories. Roger, Don, Odom. Anyway, do stuff like that just to keep people interested and to learn, and for you guys to learn a little bit more. I always say that there's so much going on in our life, in our world right now, that we don't know the half of it. We just hear, what we pay attention to, and that's fine. And that's, a lot of people like to live that way. But, when I started getting in all this is when we started getting into food additives, which would be a show. And our first show with the chemtrails. Now,
Mm.
I'm going to touch on that real quick. The fact that they do have the England has okayed something to drop chemtrails into the air that reflect the sun away to darken. I don't know why, to darken to make it not as hot, I guess. And it just seems like after telling us years that there's no such thing as weather manipulation, now they're doing it. And now it's out in the open and they have to admit that they do it. So another show. We'll wait another time. Everybody, thanks again for being here. Sorry, it was just a short show. When I saw that Greg was going to be doing a show, I wanted to kind of just step out of the way and,
thank you, Gary, for posting that. He posted a link a minute or two ago, and Greg will be on the Midwest Night Watchers show on YouTube.
or is on.
Well, we'll be on
Yeah. Okay.
in 20 minutes.
In 20 minutes. Okay.
Mhm.
So get over there and support Greg, and we love you all, and thanks for stopping by, and we will catch you next Sunday. We haven't decided the topic, but I think it's going to be on dreams and out-of-body experiences. So we'll you'll see the clip tomorrow, not the clip, but the thumbnail for it tomorrow.
The link for
We'll release that. So thanks everybody again for joining. We love you all, and
Yep,
have
love
a
you guys.
great Sunday night.
Thank you. See you
Peace.
next time.